I think they're making a grave error here, and I think it's a recipe for disaster. Not just Primark, but I believe theatres and all over the places are having these unisex toilets, and I think it's an accident waiting to happen. As you know, Dan, as usual, I made a few phone calls today before talking to you, mate, and out of the 5 women I spoke to, 3 were actresses and 2 were civilians, if you like, and all 5 of them said it was a crazy idea. I mean, look, I was brought up to respect women, and I can't help feeling that it seems to be over the last sort of year or whatever, I feel that women are being sidelined by all sorts of movements. And I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable going into, I don't mind going into the bathroom with Debbie at home, but I certainly wouldn't go into a unisex toilet when I was out shopping, be it in Primark, Marks and Spencer's, John Lewis, or anything else. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with it. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen. I really do. We've got enough bloody predators out there without giving them more opportunity for this. And Debbie can look after herself, but I know damn well she wouldn't be comfortable about going through the same situation as well. I know that young lady said she was all for it, for inclusivity, etc., etc. But, if she can be fully clothed and feel that uncomfortable, then just imagine, it would hit the fan if some poor, unfortunate female was down to her underwear and some guys just came crashing in there. So I think it's a no-no.
And it's not fair on anyone, Charlie, because as you say, indeed, it's not fair on anyone because as you say, most men, apart from the dodgy predators, don't want to be put in this situation either. But Charlie, that wasn't actually the only case of PC madness this week. The Ministry of Defence has now admitted that, quote, some mistakes were made in the Royal Air Force. Now, you'll remember this was about reports that there was a recruitment drive which favoured women and ethnic minority candidates. Initially, they tried to deny this, but now they acknowledge that despite the best of intentions, some mistakes were made in its approach. So now, Charlie, we're also compromising the strength of our armed forces to promote some sort of diversity agenda?
I have to think this, Dan, and my father served the RAF in Burma for a considerable period of time, and he flew with all races, not necessarily genders, of course not, because that just didn't happen in those days. Nowadays, if you cut the mustard and you pass the test of the RAF, it doesn't matter male or female. If you pass the test, that's fine. As regards ethnic different races in the forces, you've only got to look at the SAS to see how many Fijians and other Commonwealth members try to enter. And indeed, there have been several famous cases of Fijians being highly decorated with the special forces. Look, if you pass the test, you're in. There is a significant number of women who are being allowed to try for the SBS, SA, etc., if they pass the test. I don't think, to my knowledge, any have got any further than those tests. But, we need to be concentrating on our armed forces, and the best get in, and it's as simple as that. And the race argument, in my experience talking to veterans, sometimes happens in the British Army, but normally what happens is the culprit gets his head knocked in by the victim or friends of the victims. It gets itself sorted out. We need to stop this woke bloody nonsense. We have the finest forces in the world, and if you pass the test, you get in. You don't suddenly turn around and say, well, we need to have 3 more women in this platoon because there's only one. You know what I mean? Life doesn't work like that, and most sensible women know that. And I just think it's some idiot that the RAF obviously employed, thinking they were doing the right thing. Somebody who'd worked in some bloody office in Westminster or something, the PC office, and they've come along and they've realised they've made dicks of themselves. Excuse me.
Yes. Well, what was actually fascinating about it, Charlie, in this case, it was a woman who blew the whistle on the whole thing by quitting as one of the heads of recruitment at the RAF, which just proves the point, doesn't it? Women working in the armed forces understand you need, in certain units, physically strong folk. And it shouldn't matter what sex or race they were. But the problem is, Charlie, as always seems the case these days, they were being guided away from hiring white men.
Yeah, and women are pretty well represented now across the forces. In the oldest service of them all, the Royal Navy. I couldn't give you figures on Royal Marines or frontline regiments like paratroopers because I just don't know. But the women that I do know involved with the services have a full and very rewarding life, and they contribute just as much as the men. However, as you quite rightly point out, women are completely aware that in certain situations they ain't going to cut the mustard, and it's as simple as that. It's nothing to do with being anti-feminine, anti-woman, or anything else. It's just the facts of life. And if Sharon Davis can go along with it in sport, then you know what I mean.